Good evening. Welcome to the special meeting of the Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District. I'm Board President Rochelle Sherris-Watt. I will now take roll. Director Hassai?
Here.
Vice President Natoli?
Here.
Director Deppie?
Here.
Unfortunately, Len Welsh will not be able to join us this evening. I will now take public comment for items not appearing on the agenda. Seeing as there is none, we will adjourn to closed session and return to open session at 7:30 p.m. Thank you. Good evening. Welcome to the Thursday, June 14th, 2018 meeting of the Kensington Police Protection Community and Community Services District Board of Directors. I'm Board President Rochelle Sherris-Watt, and I will now take roll. Director Deppie?
Here.
Director Hassai?
Here.
Vice President Natoli?
Here.
Unfortunately, Director Len Welsh will not be able to be with us this evening. We will now recognize a few Kensington citizens, so I'm going to invite Evan Garrison, Charles Meacham, and Thomas Franizek to come forward. Okay, I'm just going to move here. So we are fortunate enough this evening to recognize these outstanding citizens of Kensington. Thomas Franizek, Charles Meacham, and Evan Garrison are all Eagle Scouts. In fact, Eagle Scout 98, 99, and 100 from Troop 104. So, yes, yay. They began with Kensington Pack 82 as Cub Scouts many years ago. And this past year, they have completed the 21 merit badges and significant projects in order to become Eagle Scouts, as well as progressing through, is it 6 ranks? Scout, first, second, all the ranks to become Eagle Scouts. Tom, I'll go here from my left to right, your right to left, but Thomas Franizek began at Kensington Hilltop, and he just graduated as a senior at St. Mary's College High School. He planned and constructed an 88-foot-long cedar fence around Baxter Creek Gateway Park in El Cerrito. Charles Meacham, also a Kensington Hilltop student and now an El Cerrito High rising senior, built 6 planter boxes with irrigation at Mira Vista Elementary School for their school garden program. Isn't that right? And Evan Garrison, also a rising senior at El Cerrito and former Hilltopper, built a sandbox, a play structure, that's an ice cream truck, is that what it was? Which I want in my backyard, and painted lines for ball courts at Mira Vista Elementary. Is that, no, I'm sorry, where did you worked with the church?
Yeah, Trinity Church.
Thank you, Trinity Church. So, as a token of our recognition for you, we prepared some certificates, and we have just a small token neckerchief slide for each of you boys. So if you, Chris prepared the certificates, so if you want to present each one.
All right, this is for Thomas. Shall I read these?
Sure.
So Kensington Police Protection and Community Services District recognizes Thomas Franizek for outstanding contributions to civic life. Gratefully proclaim our gratitude and appreciation for your efforts. Charlie?
And while you did your projects outside of Kensington, and we'd like to alert any rising Boy Scouts that are future Eagle Scouts that we do have funds as a district to fund Eagle Scout projects, please come to us or contact our general manager. We are so enthusiastic that you live and reside in Kensington, and we have to extend deep gratitude to their parents, Alicia Mendoza and Stephen Franizek, John and Anastasia Garrison, Sally Frazier, and Alan Meacham. So thank you. Thank you for being Kensington citizens. So we're going to ask you to just pose for a moment so that Mr. Bergen can get another. Oh, you're good? Okay. All righty. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, boys. All right, we will now take public comments on items not appearing on this evening's agenda.
It's hidden. It's hidden. It's a press-on button. Okay, Mabry Benson here. Knowing that many residents in Kensington think the world of our police officers and like the personalized service provided by these officers, and knowing that these would be crucial features in any contracting arrangement, the contracting group of the ad hoc committee, and I served on that subcommittee, asked departments whether they would hire our existing officers, assign officers dedicated to patrolling Kensington, and replace any assigned officers who do not fit well with the community. This last feature, replacing officers at our request, gives us control to replace poorly behaving officers, something we cannot now do. All the agencies said yes to all these points, though our officers would have to go through the agency's own hiring process to meet their standards. This is for retaining our current officers. I ask, if any of our officers would not be hired by these other departments, why do we want them here? Thank you.
John Gaccioni. I'd like to ask the legal counsel and Danford a few questions concerning litigation issues and how they relate to board members. With regard to legal action, such as the Sava case, help me understand some questions about these complex legal matters. For example, how does this work legally when a board is in a suit with a mix of directors, some being new and some who are no longer serving on the board? Who pays for whom? Have any directors been deposed? Is any member of the board recusing themselves as a result of pending litigation? Any light you can shed on these questions would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Go ahead, I think, Ann, if you have a legal.
Normally, questions and comments are directed at the board, and the board may decide to ask staff to respond or not. However, in this case, I normally don't give legal views or updates about pending litigation in public session. That is what the closed sessions are for. I will tell you that it is a matter of universal practice that the district would pay for the defense of this case, regardless of who is on the board now and who was on the board when the incident in question happened. The matter is covered by our risk management plan. So it's not coming out of pocket in the short term, although, of course, expenses incurred by the risk management plan are ultimately spread among the participating agencies.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further public comments. We'll move on to board and staff comments. I'm going to make the first board comment, which is that I'm sorry my opening remarks concerning the Eagle Scouts, I failed to recognize Jason and Karen Kondracki, who are the outstanding Scoutmasters of Troop 104. So also Kensington residents. So thank you, Jason and Karen. And any other further board comments? Staff comments, Tony?
Just a comment about the extension of the interim chief of police contract. The current contract was approved by the board, but it delegates authority to the general manager. The general manager is the supervisor of that position, and I wanted to inform the board that I am planning to extend the contract at least through the summer when the matrix study could possibly be completed, but potentially longer depending on when the status of that study. I also wanted to note that it is a common practice in local government that the chief receives the same pay adjustment, compensation adjustment, as the Police Officers Association, which we recently concluded and signed off on an MOU. So my intent is to go ahead and apply that same compensation adjustment to the chief of police.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to our consent calendar. We have the minutes from the May 10th, 2018 meeting. So we'll take board comments or public comments on the minutes, corrections. Go ahead.
No, I was very impressed with the transcription service. I very much appreciated the clarity of that. I don't know if anyone had edited it beforehand, but I did like them very much.
There is some editing. You'll notice some comments are less detailed than what is available on the audio recording, but we invite people who would need a full transcription to view the audio. Linda? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Linda Lipscomb, Kensington resident. Just one comment regarding the taking of minutes. I think there is a board policy. If memory serves me, it's 5060, I believe, about the minutes. My recollection is that they're supposed to be taken by staff, and I also think that the policy prescribes specific items that should be in there. And I have not had an opportunity to review these minutes. They came to me late. I believe it was yesterday that I got an email and I'm on the list. They may have been properly posted and all. They just came to me late, so I haven't had that opportunity. But I do know that there is a policy governing it, and ordinarily that they are to be done by staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? All right, I'd like to note that, there is a highlighting that has not been, is not standardized, and I would like to make a motion that we approve these minutes with highlighting of item C on page 5.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 4-0. The consent calendar is approved. We're now going to move on to item 9, the park assessment. Resolution 2018-05 is a resolution of the Board of Directors confirming the assessment and ordering the levy for the Kensington Park Assessment District for the fiscal year 18-19. Tony, would you like to intro this item?
Yes, Madam President. This item relates to the collecting the park tax assessment, and it's related to the Landscaping and Lighting Act of 1972. It's a two-step process. The first step was accomplished at the last meeting of the board with the passage of 3 resolutions. Resolution 21801, which initiated the proceedings for the levy and the collection of assessments. Resolution 2018-02, which approved the annual report for the Park Assessment District, and Resolution 2018-03, with the board declaring its intent to levy and collect the assessments. The part of the process requires that last resolution, 2018-03, be published in a local newspaper at least 10 days prior to the meeting, and that resolution was published in the East Bay Times on March 29, 2018. The total assessment is expected to raise a levy of $38,841.40. The final step in this process would be the adoption of Resolution 2018-05, which authorizes proceeding with a levy.
Alrighty, are there any public comments regarding this item? No? Board comments? If there are none, I'd like to make a motion that the board adopt Resolution 2018-05.
I will second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the resolution passes 4-0. All right, we move on to item 9B, which is approval of the budget. We have a budget year for fiscal year 2018-19, and I'll ask General Manager Constantoros to present this item as well.
The proposed budget was originally presented to the Board of Directors at the May 10th board meeting, and we went through the budget in some detail. In addition, the Finance Committee reviewed the budget at 2 meetings, one on May 1st and one on May 30th. At the last meeting, the Finance Committee did approve the proposed budget, subject to the allowing the change in any accounts. I'll cover that in a little more detail in just a couple of minutes. I also wanted to recognize Bill Zanoni, who's sitting at our table to the far left, who really did most of the work in putting the budget together and assisted me in reviewing it and advised me on the best options and presenting a usable budget that included accomplishments, objectives, and programs. So Bill is here also to answer any questions that the board may have. I wanted just to cover a few sections of the budget for you, just call attention. The first one is on page 3, which is the budget message. And in this budget message, which is the general manager, there's something new that we've added to the budget, lists the main issues that face the district in the forthcoming year. And reviewing again these issues, there are several of them that are significant, and they're unknown at this time what the direction of the board will be. So that is why the Finance Committee recommended that there be consideration to change any accounts when the information becomes available. And you'll see that in the budget message, there's the same recommendation. So the first item is the community center project, which currently the estimated cost is $1,649,000. And funding has been identified at $1,295,320, which is short of the estimated cost. We don't know the actual cost until there's bidding, and then based on the bids, some financing plan would have to be recommended to the board to make up that difference. The Finance Committee did discuss that and had some creative ideas on that financing also. until we have the actual number, we really can't budget effectively or know the exact number. The second item is the increased retirement and OPEB costs, which I think most people are familiar, have been very high and continue to be projected at very high rates. And there are new reporting requirements related to these increased costs. Some of the articles that have been written on retirement costs indicate that there could be projected major problems for smaller communities. And Kensington, being a smaller community, needs to pay particular attention to these and follow these costs and budget appropriately. This will likely continue for 5 to 10 years in the foreseeable future. It isn't something that's just for 1 year. The next item is the GAN appropriations limit. The district is required to pass the GAN appropriations resolution and identify the numbers related, applicable to the appropriations limit. That is included in the budget in the last page. Before the board can adopt that, however, it requires a advertised public hearing at least 15 days before the board action. So that action will likely take place at the July meeting, but the information is available and it is in the budget. We wanted to note that currently an election will be required this year, and the board I'm recommending that the board probably form a subcommittee to oversee the election process for the GAN appropriations election. This is done every 4 years, and there is a model that was used 4 years ago with all the information. The next item is the public safety building. Now, the fire board is the lead agency on this project, but the project will have tremendous impacts on the police district because that's where the police are located. So as soon as there's more cost and location information available, we will analyze that as provided by the fire board. The next item is the police services study that is being conducted by Matrix, which really will set the direction of the future for the police department. This study will probably be done by September. I'm trying to work on and getting it done a little earlier than that, but hopefully by the end of summer, the board will be in a position to consider options with all the information available, the financing, the operational issues, and other issues related to the police, and also compare having a standalone department as there currently is versus the cost of contracting with a neighboring jurisdiction. So we should have that information available at that time. We can't budget for it at this time because we don't have that information available completely. We have only pieces of it. The administrative study it's largely invisible to the public, but it's not invisible to the general manager. It's really the support system to get everything done. It's really the foundation of a good organization. What is the work that needs to be done and who's doing it? And currently this staffing probably needs some reallocation. The board has been doing a lot of the work and helping out and doing some of the staff work because there is no one available to do it. This study will address that, and it's possible that this study could be presented at the next board meeting if it's completed. I wanted to note also the policy and procedures manual, which, as everyone knows, is out of date, and there is a small committee working on that to move it forward probably in the early part of next fiscal year. A couple of other items of interest in this budget is the crossing guard services, which used to be reimbursed by the school district, will no longer be reimbursed by the school district. So this budget includes the $14,000 cost to provide for crossing guard services. We've also included money for 4 park benches and 5 garbage containers that have, at various locations, mostly along Arlington, at an estimated cost of $40,000. So that's also included in this, funded in this budget. We've been assisted with Director Natoli in costing this and researching this item. The next page I wanted to call attention to is page 6, which is a summary of the budget. And in this summary, you can see that the revenue exceeds the projected expenditures, which is where you want to be. I think that last year that may not have been the case, but these are projections. We've tried to be realistic in these projections, and we've gone over these numbers. It's close, but it does show a positive number at the end, which is where we want to be. The next 2 pages are simply graphic representations of revenue and expenditures, which for me is very helpful. I always like pie charts. It really shows you how funds are allocated and how they're spent and where the revenue comes from. I wanted to skip forward to page 20, the authorized staffing part of the budget, which shows what the staff is for each function in the organization, mostly in the police, parks and recreation, and we've also broken out district administration separately. So this is just numbers of positions and approximately how much time they work. For example, the general manager is listed as a half-time employee, which approximates the amount of time that I'm currently working at the district. Also, new to the budget is the next page, which is the page 21, which is a 5-year financial forecast. And this financial forecast, we really tried, and this is, Bill's been very helpful in this, to be realistic in our projections, not optimistic or pessimistic, but somewhere in the middle. And if you do that, it shows that with the current budget, the current situation, we were able to maintain a positive surplus, an operating surplus in these years. Of course, it's going to be influenced largely by what happens with these unknown items, the community center and the police department. Could change these numbers depending what direction the board selects. So with that, I think we're completed, and I'll be glad to answer any questions, and Bill's here to help out. I don't know if Bill had anything to add, or...
No, I think this has been a very, very, I believe, a very thorough collaborative process. Finance Committee has met twice and really gone through this budget. They had concerns and issues, which I think we've addressed and called out. And I think, I believe it's a balanced budget. We're not dipping into reserves. It's just based on realistic information that is available at this time. So, and I think our goal going forward would be to provide the board with quarterly updates to this budget, and then, if need be, adjust the budget throughout the year as we go along.
Bill, can I ask you on page 21, your 5-year forecast, how do you handle the CalPERS contributions, and how do you handle the OPED contribution that we need to make?
We've assumed in here, this is a very fairly simple model, and it's something that we'll continue to update, but we've assumed increases in CalPERS costs every year and funding OPEB every year. So as those numbers change, as we get additional information, we'll update this, but we've assumed increases.
Where would I find that? Is that part of salaries? Is that part of other expenses? Where would I see that?
The retirement?
Yeah,
Yes. Salaries and benefits.
okay.
Our actual OPEB contribution will come from an actuarial study that we need to complete this summer, which
Correct.
we've begun the process of getting that study underway.
Is that study done every year? Because it feels like we've had so many.
I believe.
2 years.
2 years, yes.
There
Right,
was a
yes.
stuttering because the board previously felt that the actuarial that was given, and I say in 2015, was not accurate, so it was redone. And so Nicolay Consulting gave us a new OPEB figure, but now we're at the point where we need to do that again. Well, I want to thank both General Manager Constantoros and Bill Zanoni. It was a tremendously positive process to put together this budget, and I thank you very, very much for both your vision and your expertise on this and making it a hopefully more user-friendly document, a little bit, I don't want to say simpler, but easier to understand and distill. As Tony said, the Finance Committee approved this budget on May 30th with the caveat that everything is up for renegotiation, or discussion, I should say, and that the board is asked to do a mid-year budget review no later than November 1st of 2018. And that motion passed 5-0. We are missing currently from this document an investment policy, a reimbursement policy, and a salary schedule. I think those 3 items are going to work with Bill to bring those in for the mid-year budget review.
Could you repeat those 3 things again?
An investment policy, a reimbursement policy, and the salary schedule. But as all of those needed more information, given our current negotiations and discussions, it seemed pertinent to just bring them up to date as quickly as we can, but probably with the mid-year budget review. All right, now are there any other public comments? Oh, please come to the microphone.
Mabry Benson again. This is a quick question. Tony, did I hear you say that the MOU, and I presume that's with the police officers, has been signed?
That's correct, and it's posted on the website.
Does that require board approval? Did I miss that? I know I missed a couple meetings.
The board has already approved it.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry for my not keeping
It was
up to
approved
date.
some months ago.
Yeah, well,
There was some
there was-
language that needed to be worked out, and that was what was
Okay,
the delay.
okay, and I admit that I missed a few meetings there, and I guess I missed that big one. Thank you.
Good evening, Jim Watt. Unfortunately, I missed that Finance Committee meeting on the 30th, and I do have one question that I think needs to be looked at a little bit more closely. And that is, I'm concerned that we're actually showing in this budget that we have here the correct number for the amount of money that we have set aside for our capital improvements for this building. And what I've handed out to you, and I'm sorry I don't have quite enough, I'll give Bill Zanoni my copy when I'm finished here. But what is shown on the first page that I gave you is the current budget, and it sets forth under item number 972, the park building improvement costs. And basically, I won't spend a lot of time on this because I talked with Bill before the meeting, and I believe we agreed that we'd take a look at it tomorrow. Am I correct, Bill? So I think that probably we can maybe work out some of the issues without going into a lot of detail here. But I just wanted to point out that I think that some of the numbers appear to be in error. If you look at the number here, you'll see that it shows that under the year 2017-18, we had budgeted $307,000 for the improvements to this building. And if you then go over to the, to the second page, you'll see that that 307 doesn't appear in the year 2017-18, but it appears in the year 2016-17.
Can I interrupt you? For those who don't have the document, Jim is talking about page 25 of the agenda, and this is under capital outlay, item 972, which is the third column from the bottom.
Right, sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
So I just wanted to point out, I think that we probably don't have as much money currently set aside as we're showing on page 19, which is 307,000 and then 350,000. I think that we're going to find out that that number is somewhat less than that. But rather than spend a lot of time on it now, maybe Bill and I can talk about it tomorrow. How does that sound, Bill? Because it could get way too detailed right now for that. And the other thing that I included in this list that I have given you is the results for the audit that we got for June 30th of 2017. And I would very much like to see, as part of this approved budget, a page which shows the very similar information to what is being shown here. That is that page 31 of the audit that we just had approved. So we can maybe talk about all these things tomorrow. So I won't spend any more time on that other than to say that I think there may be a few little discrepancies in the money that was set aside.
I think that on page 25, what Deborah Russell has done is that there was 307,000 budgeted. We moved that total over into the 17-18 column. She's just putting what's been projected that we have spent thus for 17-18. And then I think we essentially liquidated the 972 category, moving all of that over to a capital project fund, which is our ultimate goal, that actually this doesn't exist just under the budget, under an expense category, but in fact becomes its own separate unit.
I'm fairly confident that this number is correct. It's right. I mean, it's right out of the general ledger. But what I will do is provide I'll contact Debbie and we'll put together an accounting of this to show how we arrived at it and make sure.
That might be, yeah, that's all I'm looking for. Just clarify how you got to that number.
Definitely.
Okay. Yeah. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Marilyn Stolen. First, I'd like to thank Tony, our general manager, for creating an incredibly professional budget that exceeded my expectations. It has something for everyone. Narrative for those who love words and concepts, pie charts for those who like visuals, and numbers for the lovable and necessary bean counters. Many of us don't know what we've been missing for years until viewing this budget that lays out our financial liabilities now and in the future. It educates and informs. So Tony, thank you again, and your assistant, your partner. Now, on to my budget questions for Tony, because there are a few things I don't see and some things that I don't understand. I can't find it, so I'm asking you to show taxpayers where they can find it, what the line item is. Does this budget represent any monetary settlements paid out to employees or complainants? On what line item or category are settlement payments represented, as they are ultimately paid for by the taxpayers? I'd appreciate it if you could break out this budget item for taxpayers. Did we pay more for employee claims or outside complaints? Maybe putting it as a percentage such as 50-50, 70-30, 90-10 would be easier in order to get an idea of what's happening. If funds are going towards claims from outside the department, that's helpful budget information because I would assume it impacts budget items for community training, etc. If claims are by employees, then taxpayers might question how much funding you've budgeted for consulting. I'm asking from a strictly budget perspective. not regarding management nor policy. I just want budget information that I would assume is public information. I would also assume it's an important budget figure for Matrix as they move forward identifying accurate costs, correct? Lastly, with RICO trial scheduled for September 2019, I think taxpayers should know what has been paid and what the worst-case scenario is for future claims. This is why I ask, where is this public information represented in the budget? I can't find it, so I'm asking you to clarify for taxpayers where they can find it. Thank you.
I think we're working it out.
Well, while they're looking up the information here, I think those are some really well-taken points, and that one of the problems we've had is identifying the legal costs and allocating them to the proper accounts and the proper departments. And the legal costs have been high in the last couple of years. And one possibility would be to create separate the legal costs as a separate unit completely and identify which departments or what categories those costs are going to, whether they're consulting, whether they're related to litigation. And that would give us a running history and identify where the bulk of those costs are. Since they weren't done in the past, they weren't separated that way, it's very difficult to go back and figure that out. So we tended to for now, place them together in single accounts. We did separate some of that. We were able to do some of that in the police department. But that is an area that, since it is a major cost item, that I think we should look at, especially next year's budget, to provide better, more refined detail on that. I don't know, Bill, did you have? Yeah.
I would agree with the general manager that as for past legal expenditures, it's difficult to separate out what wasn't tracked separately before he and I joined the district. I can tell you that over the past year, our expenditures and settlements has been fairly limited. There have been workers' comp covered settlements. Those are covered by payment of our premiums. I will defer to Bill to identify where in the budget those premiums are. And there have been some payouts that come out of our risk management, our special district risk management program. And again, they cover those costs. We pay a premium, and that premium is reflected in the upcoming year's budget.
So at the front of the budget, we tried to roll things up at a higher and higher level. On page 23 and 24 in the budget, this is where we have the line item detail. And so, for example, workers' compensation, the district workers' compensation insurance premiums are account number 530. That's about the halfway down on page 23. So that's the premium, and then any claims payments, the district is insured through the Special District Risk Management Authority, and claims payments would be paid by them. So the insurance premiums are reflected in this budget. But the line item detail for every account is on these two pages.
Yes. So the fact is that some claims we just simply don't pay. Our insurance pays them, and you may notice a difference in, and the board may not even be given that information on an exact payment, let's say on a workers' comp claim, but SDMRA would, over time, bill us accordingly. Is the same as your car insurance will nicely increase your premiums as time goes on. So yes, we'd have to track those over time.
Can I add one more point of clarification that might be helpful?
Sure.
I do note that in years past, there have been quite high legal fees in the order of $250,000. Those would have been litigation matters that were not covered by the risk management policy. And the bills for that can get very high, which is why we like to have as broad insurance coverage as we can. But it doesn't cover all cases.
Bill, where would we find the premiums for SDRMA? Is that, that's workers' comp?
Yeah, it should be part of 522, but I believe that doesn't cover it completely.
Well, the SDRMA would be for the district rather than specifically for the police, right?
Other questions?
Could I, on that same topic, just wanted to note that insurance is good, for paying the funds for insurance, that's
Yes, yeah.
that's a good sign. Paying it for claims and litigation is not good, and we don't control that completely, as everybody knows, but the district's claims have been running historically high. You heard the legal counsel indicate that they were quite high for the last couple of years. The good news is that we seem to be doing better and trending down on that. It's not as low as we want it to be, but we are heading in the right direction. It's extremely high for such a small entity that the claims and legal costs are that high. Most local governments have almost no costs for litigation. That's how high it is. And that's where we're trying to move to. That's where we want to be.
Bill, is it $850?
Yes, I think that's right.
That's insurance under district?
Yes, and it's proposed for the coming year to be $39,000 is our insurance.
That's good, okay.
850 is on page 25.
I just want to reassure the board that we have had no litigation fees of that kind since I started here.
Yes, thank you. Please, Dr. Delk.
A. Stevens Delk. Thank you, Tony, for including solid waste in your final report. That was one big problem, however. Since you inserted a page, all the page numbers were off from the draft and the final after that point. But anyway, trivial. I would like to say on page 18, the first paragraph, I think you should have indicated that Bayview also provides recycling service. Recyclables account for about 30% of our waste. Under accomplishments, you have yard waste at 207 tons per month. It was actually 83, about 25% less than garbage, not 70% more. The diversion rate is for yard waste plus recyclables, based on a combined 153 tons. As you know, the state has revised its original 75% recycling goal and established a new goal that is not based on percent diverted, but on the amount disposed of in landfill on a per capita basis. For 2020, it is set at no more than 2.7 pounds per person per day, PPD. I suggest you include Kensington's landfill PPD as the matrix under accomplishment, or as a matrix. In 2017, we were at 1.5.
As great as that is, both our annual landfill disposal and diversion have been basically the same for the last 10 years. Adding food composting may reduce disposal to 1.2 ppd and increase diversion from about 60% to 65%. I have copies of the 2017 Bayview quarterly reports for your review and a spreadsheet that shows you the data from 2005.
I wanted to comment on Dr. Dilk's comments in the perspective of the entire budget. This budget is so different that it includes this kind of information, and we can always improve on it. Before, we had no page like this at all. There was no information, no accomplishments, no descriptions. But because we have it, doesn't mean it's perfect or it can't be improved. So we appreciate comments on improving it, and it's a continuous process. Every year, we continue to improve it and make it better.
Hi, Linda Lipscomb. First, I'd like to thank you for continuing to carry the SDRMA insurance and to offer a side comment, unsolicited lawyer interpretation. If there is a lawsuit that does not seek damages, such as in the recent past, a writ proceeding, but instead seeks injunctive or administrative relief of that kind, it does not fall under the insurance that we had. I don't know that it does today. And that is what accounted for the extremely high legal expenses, that some $250,000, mainly it was that writ proceeding, because it was not covered by SDRMA, unfortunately. Now, to the budget. I noticed that on page 21, in the 5-year financial forecast for 2017-18, there's no mention of a COPS grant, and I just was curious about that, about the $100,000 that is not there. Did we not get it?
It's grants police?
The COPS grant.
Oh, you're right. They're under
2017-18.
2017-18, yes.
A lot of money.
It hasn't been received yet.
Pay the SDRMA for about 3 years.
No, it should have been received,
Right, this shows budget, so it was not,
budgeted for. And now we're budgeting for it. This is the new.
This is 17-18.
No, but they did not, remember in past, we've,
No, we
Not
don't
budgeted.
project, we don't as a,
but what they were stating is what they actually budgeted, not the finished budget.
breaks on page 21, we have 2017, 2018, and yet on 2018, 2019, we have $100,000. So that's what I'm asking.
That is a change. We made that decided this year to make a change to budget for the COPS grant and to put
Okay.
that $100,000 in June rather than,
Great, that's wonderful, but
Passed.
it's not on the 2017-18
because
That
revenue.
was the budget that was passed, and when it was
look on
passed,
page 10 of the budget.
Thank you.
But Linda is correct. In the past, we did not budget. Definitely in 16, 17, we didn't budget for the COPS grant either. So that shouldn't, you're right. It's been
It's
was that
shown.
reflect one.
What I'm
but not
saying is it's
the other.
reflected on the 2015, it's reflected on the 2016, it is not reflected on the 2017.
yes, it's
That's all.
actual.
She's right, it's not consistent. So we either go to the original
I believe
budget.
what we did is, in the past, it has not been a budgeted, but we have consistently received it. So if in the budget document, it shows as actual revenue, but not budgeted.
Oh, I can see, okay.
Can I give
17,
it
18.
a,
we haven't
For
received it.
example, on page.
can I give it a try too? Answer, because
She's
it
right,
is a
there's
little
two,
confusing.
it's actual budget, Linda, that's what, yes.
Well,
Okay.
maybe if that's, does that answer your question, Linda, or?
On page 21, it has the actual number for 15, On page 21, it indicates for 2015, it indicates 100,000 for 2016, it indicates for zero for 2017.
So that what those columns represent for 2015-16 is actual revenue.
As actual.
2016-17 is actual revenue, and 2017-18 is what was in the adopted budget.
If you,
And
But
so
not
what-
actual revenue.
Correct. And so what we decided was, since we have received that, we tend to receive that revenue every year, that going forward, we would budget it. So that's why it's showing in the budgeted column. But for as the adopted budget for 17-18, it was not a approved budget.
So if you went back to the 15-16 and the 16-17 budget, that would also show zero in the budget.
but this is actual. If you look carefully, it says actual, and then budget. So they're different.
But
Okay, but it's a bit confusing in that it's shown for 18 and thereafter.
Right.
And I just was
That's
hoping you still got the 100. That's
Well, let me explain a little bit that it's a little bit of a budgeting philosophy here, because it deals with grants. And some agencies feel that unless you have the grant in hand, you can't really budget for it because it's unknown that you'll actually get the funds. And that has been the philosophy here in forming previous budgets. But we've always received the funds. The budget is a forecast, is a tool to use. And we thought it was appropriate to go ahead and put it in here in our forecast, because it's likely we'll receive it.
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is, it's in every column except this year.
Yeah, well,
I think when, we're not through the fiscal year
We're
yet,
still in this budget year, that's why.
but I think that your point is good, because it's it's very confusing, clearly. So I think that when we do the mid-year budget review, we should pay attention to that and make sure that everything is then actual.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Paul Doro. First, I'd like to thank the staff and the board for putting together the most intelligible budget that I've seen yet for this district. It's really a great leap forward. So kudos to you for that. One other development that I would certainly urge on you for the presentation of the monthly financials is a variance report. We've talked about that in the past in the Finance Committee. And I think it would be illuminating to see what accounts for differences in actual to budget. This is budget season, obviously, for public agencies. Last night, I was at the fire district meeting along with a number of other citizens. Actually, they had to invoke their own 5-minute rule. How often has that happened? And there's something that struck me, because you talked about the MOU and also Chief Hull's adjustment consistent with the negotiated salary increase for our officers, which I think was 3+%. So last night, the fire board reported on their proposed contract with El Cerrito, and the increase in personnel costs there is 9% this year, following a 10% increase last year. Although I don't think he's here tonight, our good friend Carl Cardell objected vociferously to the fire district accepting back-to-back almost 10% increases. And the point was, what are you going to do about it? So that's one of the things to think about as you consider contracting.
Bill, just to talk about the variance report, so this is going to be a quarterly presentation in the future, however, right? You're going to be presenting quarterly?
That would be our intent, is quarterly present and that would include revenues, expenditures year-to-date, and then any variances.
And will there still be monthly budget, these monthly reports in the same level of detail, or are you moving to the more quarterly budget? So, but the variance piece is important. I think we've all agreed on that for a long time.
Yeah, I believe what we had discussed would be quarterly reports, with the understanding that if anything significant were to develop, either good or bad, within the quarter, that would be brought.
Okay, well, thanks for paying attention to the variance.
Mabry again. Tony, I just looked through the agendas back to January. My machine was terribly slow for earlier than that, and I did not find that the MOU was on any of those agendas. Well, maybe,
I think you have to go back to last year because it was done maybe even before the end of the year.
oh, really?
Yes, and there was just some language details to be worked out, and due to a variety of reasons, it took longer than we all had expected.
Well, like I say, I went back through January.
I think you
No,
need to go
got
back to
there, yeah, well, and the machine just said, no, it's taking too long.
I think it was November where we passed the MOU.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, further comments on the budget? All right, then will make a motion that we approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 18-19.
I'll second.
Madam President, what the board will be doing is approving the resolution.
Excuse me, yes.
And I wanted to note that we had a little difficulty here with our numbering system, so it becomes resolution number 2018-08.
I'll second the motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2018-08, that for adopting the budget for fiscal year 18-19. All in favor? Oh, wait, I'm sorry, second.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, the motion passes 4-0. And we will have the appropriations limit during the July meeting, and I also recommend that we appoint the subcommittee as suggested by the general manager at that time. All right, we'll move on to item 10A, which is the resolution of the Board of Directors establishing the annual supplemental special tax for police protection, commonly referred to as the Measure G increase. So this appears in your agenda. I guess we don't have page numbers here, so I apologize.
It's 10A.
But it's 10A. Tony, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, this item was approved by the voters on June 8th, 2010, and it is the Measure G supplemental special tax. These funds are to be used directly for police protection services and no other reason. The current supplemental tax per parcel is shown in a 4-year history in the staff report, where it started at approximately $220 for a single-family residential and is in 2017-18, $241. And then there's other categories, multifamily, commercial, and miscellaneous property, and it shows the history there of the 4-year history. Now, we're required to file a report with the Board of Directors no later than June 30th of each year that shows two things. The first is that the amount of funds collected should be disclosed, and the total amount collected in this current fiscal year is $547,995. We also need to verify that the funds were used solely for police services, and we have a statement indicating that in case was the use of the funds. The board can increase the tax, which becomes the new tax, or the new maximum tax, by the Consumer Price Index, which for year fiscal 2018-19, the CPI was 3.217%, and applying that increase, there is a new column that's been added in the staff report, which shows the amount of increase So again, just selecting single-family residential, it's currently $241.18. Applying the CPI increase increases it to $248.94. We're recommending that the board discuss and receive any comments, and recommending approval of the resolution that would increase it to the, would allow the increase up to the CPI increase.
So that is a tax increase of, for single-family residential units of $7.76 in the coming year. If the board does not approve this tax increase, we cannot go back and increase the tax in coming years, though we can adopt the CPI increase for that particular fiscal year. Take public comments. Are there any? All right. Board comments? Well, this, for me, is, I never like levying a tax increase on any resident. I know that many of us with increasing prices in the Bay Area struggle to get by, and it's small, but it does add up over time. And this tax increase can only be used for police services, but I do feel that we've really been dedicated to cutting our budget in the coming year, and cutting what we can and becoming more efficient, and I think that it's probably necessary, given some of the deficiencies that we've already understood with our training in our department, to recommend this increase. So.
I would agree with that also, because we can't recapture this, and we've given our officers a 3% increase, and we have additional CalPERS liability based on the way they're doing their calculations of the unfunded liability, and our unfunded liability for retirement benefits as well.
All right, then I'm going to make a motion that the board adopt Resolution 2018-06, establishing the annual supplemental special tax. Oh, I'm sorry.
Madam President, don't mean to confuse things here, but there were actually two resolutions included in the packet. The first resolution was blank, so if the board was going to take a different amount or something, it would allow that option.
Excuse me, thank you.
And Resolution 2018-07 does include the CPI increase and shows the figures for that. So you would be adopting 2018-07.
Oh, okay, all right.
No blank checks.
Yes, I don't think anyone wants us to adopt the open-ended resolution. So, excuse me. I will make a motion that the board adopt Resolution 2018-07, establishing the annual supplemental special tax for police protection, and increasing that maximum tax, by the increase in the consumer price index, which is 3.217%.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any noes? Okay. The motion passes 4-0. All right, we're moving on to item 10B. So I will introduce this item. The Kensington Community Center, as we all know, is slated for seismic and ADA renovations this coming year. And in order to make sure that we have space for continuation of these meetings, Director Hasai and myself have entered into discussion with the Arlington Community Church. They've generously offered to house us, which would prevent our having to move trucks out of the at the public safety building or sit in that cold apparatus bay in the winter months in order to hold meetings. So you'll see the contract that follows item 10B, staffing report. This, Director Hasai can tell you about updates in our timeline. This contract, they agreed to house us beginning this month, but that will not be necessary, and I propose that if we accept the contract, we change the date to beginning in perhaps October for security, but probably we won't need to be in there until November.
I wonder how, how flexible they could be too, that we could start at a certain date, but as long as we gave them a certain amount of notice, we're going to know hopefully soon. So the update just for the community center, a couple of things to let the community know. First of all, there's the East Bay Regional Park Board met, and on May 15th, passed a sort of blanket extension for the WW grant funds. So there will not be a need to push to do that by December 31st, should other parts of the project for any reason be delayed, which is good news that it won't cost more and it'll be logistically much easier. So the update as far as the process goes is that the architects have yet to meet with the county. They've been trying to get a meeting, basically what they call an intake meeting, and are trying to get a sense from the planning department if there are anticipate any roadblocks. The biggest item for discussion that we know of so far, it relates to something called a use permit as it relates to the community center, and there is no use permit on file either at the district or the county, as best we can tell, after pretty exhaustive searches. And the county would normally require, for some reason, I don't really understand why, an amendment to the use permit, but there is no change in use for this building. And so the architects are just going to argue that there should be no delay. That normally can be a 4 to 6 month process, and there should be no delay for us. They're going to argue that there's no need to do an amendment. So that meeting has not yet occurred, but based on adjusting the timeline that they've been using all along, the earliest imagined construction date now could be November 1st. So everything's been pushed back. It's still all speculative until they have these meetings with the county.
All right. I also recommend that we ask staff to alert users of this building that it will no longer be usable after October 31st, 2018, and also that staff alert the county that the building will not be available for elections on November 6th, 2018. So are there any public comments? Board comments? Then I'd like to make a motion that after approval of legal counsel, we authorize the general manager to enter into contract with the Arlington Community Church for meeting space for the district beginning in October of 2018.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0. Now, item 10C. We in the past have authorized Director Deppie to be the board's vote for Contra Costa County, LAFCO. And we have item 10C, which is a specific election, which is a call for nominations to appoint an independent special district representative to the countywide redevelopment agency oversight board. So my recommendation is that we give Director Deppie authorization to vote in this special election, which he will need to do before June 30th of 2018 on behalf of the board. Are there any public discussion? Board discussion? All right. I'll make a motion that we authorize Director Deppie to execute this vote. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 4-0. Good luck and avoid that electioneering.
I already got something.
Oh, you already, great. All right. Item 10D is district options for policies governing our district website and other social media. And our General Counsel, Ann Danforth, will present this item.
Thank you, President. Working on it. I bring this matter forward at the direction of Director Deppie at the May 10th meeting. The district, as all know by now, is preparing a new manual of policies and procedures, which will be based on the California Special District Association's model manual. This process is likely to consume several months. In the interim, a number of questions have arisen regarding the use of the district's new website. The district's current policies and procedures manual does not address social media use at all. Accordingly, the board may wish to accelerate the adoption of a policy to govern how the district uses the website and other social media. As we all know, social media has become an increasingly crucial means of communication. Websites and other media are now the standard and most effective source of information that many organizations offer the public. Government agencies face a particular challenge in using social media. Anytime a public agency uses or creates a means of communication, the agency must decide whether to open that forum to all who wish to participate or to limit use to its own staff and purposes. The First Amendments of the U.S. and California Constitution come into play whenever a public agency owns or controls a medium that can be used for interactive communication. To use a simple example, if a city maintains a billboard that is open for use on a first-come, first-served basis, it may run afoul of First Amendment rights if it tries to borrow a would-be user because of distasteful content. The district, like most public agencies, has created and maintains its website for the specific purpose of communicating with district residents and other members of the public. The district could avoid the First Amendment problem simply by disallowing postings by non-district officials or for non-district business. However, there are other agencies whose communications may further the district's own goals. By adopting narrow, carefully crafted criteria, the board may allow information from those other agencies on its website. Other complications that may arise from the social media use include the following: use of public resources, employee use of social media, both on behalf of the agency and personally, other employment-related social media issues, open meeting law issues, Public Records Act retention and disclosure issues, procurement, gift, and contract issues, disability access issues, and privacy issues. The model manual policies, which are attached to the staff report, do address social media and website usage. They address some of the above issues, but not all of them. Accordingly, the board may wish to consider the following modifications to the model policies. One would be a statement of the website's purpose that would demonstrate the reason for any criteria narrowing the use of the website. One possibility, to enhance communication with residents about district services and operations, provide timely information regarding district businesses, streamline processes, and foster productivity improvements. Another suggestion, a clarification that the website is subject to both Policy 2415 and 2520 of the model manual. Criteria for posting hyperlinks and other information from outside agencies. I would recommend limiting such postings to agencies that provide services typical of local government agencies, such as Contra Costa County, the Kensington Fire Protection District, and the West Contra Costa Unified School District. The website and any district social media should include a statement advising users how to request assistance if they have a disability that impairs their ability to access the information on the medium. Finally, a statement that information that is outdated or no longer relevant may be removed, but such information must be retained in digital or other form as required by California law. I've also provided links to an article regarding the issues involved in social media by government agencies and several examples from other government agency policies. In closing, I would simply like to ask the board to consider the suggestions that I've put forth before you, and if it's the board's wish to approve a policy for the district's website and social media use, that they provide direction and how they would like that policy to be formed.
All right, board comments?
Thank you.
I have a question. Would Streamline be able to provide some type of service? I'm thinking about the equal access. And I'm wondering if Streamline would be able to provide that kind of service.
I don't know about a service. I know they're I could ask them. I know that they've formatted the website such that it's ADA compliant, but as far as extra services, I really don't know.
What I'm thinking about in specific is for anyone that's visually impaired.
Right? I mean, would they be able to have something that you could click to expand the text or something like that, or a reader mode or something like that? I can ask them.
I think that's part of what the service was, that their website is compatible for
For screen readers, it's supposed
a
to be, yeah.
user's personal items that help them do that. That was one reason why we went with them. They have those things.
Okay, that's what I was.
And also an important component of us having documents be searchable
Right.
is to be, also follow in that compliance.
So hopefully it takes care of itself by the way they formatted and explain the information.
Got it, thank you.
Well, I think it's obviously a good idea. I did want to talk about the policy, the sample policy. So a lot of it is about social media, and then the website policy comes later saying it references to social media. And we really have at least two platforms, maybe three. I don't know if the Twitter account is even active. We have a Facebook page, I know, and I don't think anyone's maintaining it, and the website. So I'm assuming this would be applied to all of our social media.
Yes, Director Debe?
I think the policy is a good start. I mean, I have some questions about specific items, but should we wait until you come up with I mean, are you going to take this and then come up with an actual policy, or what's the plan?
My idea was that you could discuss perhaps the modifications that I've suggested, any modifications you might also like to see, and I could come back with a draft. If the board prefers, if you think there are too many, then perhaps the board could nominate you as the liaison to work with me on generating a draft policy for the board to consider.
So I like your additions. And I pulled down Berkeley's, I guess it was the external links policy. It pretty much mirrors what you said. They essentially say links to other government agencies and links to organizations that have received formal sponsorship from the city of Berkeley in the form of city council resolution, which would, for us be a board resolution, or which with the city has entered into a joint initiative to achieve a city objective. So I would recommend using that as kind of a model, applying it to the district instead of a city. But it seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I like your additions and the model policy very much.
There's, as far as the social media, it seems to imply that employees and directors should not be posting on non-district social media sites at all. That's sort of how I read it.
Not in their official capacity now.
Right.
Of course, they have a First Amendment right to have their own blogs, web pages, whatever they like.
Right, so for instance, Nextdoor, is a board member or district employee, we should not be posting on Nextdoor.
Purely as a resident.
Right.
Unless the district has a presence and a staff person or a board person is designated to post something, and then there's more guidelines there that you can't be in chat, but it doesn't bar the district from having a presence.
I think it sort of
District
does.
officials, such as the general manager, could certainly post. The problem would arise when individual board members are posting, and the result, even if unintended, is communication between 3 or more individual board members. This is where the public meeting laws come into play.
We have posted purely informational, because there is no one maintaining a social media presence for the district.
As
So we
long
have
as you're not
posted-
responding to one another, but I would tread carefully.
Yes.
But I think we can also, with the establishment of these policies, clarify that actually our only communication is our website, and that is maintained and updated, and any information that folks want to have should come through that venue,
The official
the official venue.
statement,
Right.
policies.
I have heard, but I don't know, since I'm not a Facebook user, that some police departments have Facebook pages, and I don't know if our Kensington Police Department has a Facebook page or not.
They have their own website, which is something else that will come up in the course of discussing an ultimate policy.
It actually says in the sample manual that separate departments should not have their own social media platform.
Yes, that's a difference between the special district policies and the policies adopted by larger cities who do allow departments to have separate policies. That's a matter of personal preference. Whatever goes on a website that is an official district website should have someone monitoring it to ensure that it's presenting the district's message and not an individual's message.
I guess the question is, should the police department also have a separate website?
They don't.
Oh, they don't.
They have a Facebook page,
They have a
however.
Facebook page, but that's, yes, and under this, that would not probably.
I think, though, that
Thought they did.
that may not be, that was in place. We can ask the chief if it's currently maintained, but that actually, I think that purview should now fall to the general manager and.
This is one of the difficulties when staff move on, or only staff have credentials, and then they're no longer here. If it's not maintained department-wide or by the GM, it creates problems.
Hi, everyone. Status on the Facebook page is that we did have one in the past, but I believe it has been shut down. It's no longer being maintained.
I think it
Did everyone hear me?
exists. I don't think it's not, it may not be maintained, but it still exists.
Okay.
So I think that some exploration by staff about who has the password to that would be very, might be positive. As far as social media use goes, there's also policy through Lexipol. So I think that I would like to, after a consideration, and we want to hear public comment first, is that perhaps Anne also has access to that document so that we're combining policies so that we're aware. No, Lexipol.
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with that.
Lexipol is the police department's standards and practices. But please, go ahead.
Lexipol is a company that we use to maintain our police department policy. They, what they do is, they update the policy according to federal law and state law, and they continue to send us updates, so we are in a continual process of updating our police department policies and procedures.
Do they address social media?
They do. We do have a social
Right.
media policy.
I wasn't aware that they address social media. I'll have a look.
I'll get you a copy.
I'd like to work with you and Chris on this as sort of the person who's concerned about outreach, because I want to be thinking about how we communicate with the community.
If the board so decides,
The
I'm
board
happy to
so
work with you both.
All right, we should make sure that we take public comment on this policy, so if anyone would like to address the board?
Mabry Benson again. I think it would be useful if it can be appropriately arranged for a next door, for a district presence on next door, be it just to announce, hey, we're having a board meeting tonight. I think, well, one might hope it would get more community members out, because how many people just, in their idle moments of the day, go look at the KPPCSD website? Well, not many, but people read next door, and hearing it, it could be just the general manager doing a posting, like we'll call it a public service announcement, and he can close it so there's no public reaction to it. But I think it would be useful for community communications.
Dave Spath. With regard to the criteria for posting hyperlinks, it seems to be somewhat narrow with the examples you gave. And one example I would give is the Kensington Public Safety Council, which has a mission that ties in with the district. And so I would hope that you would broaden consideration of posting of agencies that aren't quite local governmental agencies. Berkeley seems to have a more broad approach than I read into the criteria that you set forth. So that's one issue. The other issue is, is Nixle considered then a social media medium under this policy?
I think Nixle is an emergency communication.
Right, but it
It's also
has,
social media.
I know, but it has been used already in the past by us, or the district, to announce, for example, PG&E doing work on the trees that are in the line. So that's really not an emergency indication by any means. So if we're going to maintain that approach, which I don't disagree with at all, then I think we should decide whether Nixle wants to be as expansive as that, and whether it comes under this this policy. So, thank you very much.
Just one quick comment about the Nixle platform. It's operating under 3 different tiers. There's an advisory, there's a community, and then there's the emergency section that Nixle incorporates.
Hi, Linda Lipscomb. I have actually seen members of a board commenting on the next door. It seems to me the problem you get into there is a violation of the Brown Act potentially. There's, as you know, 2 models. For the people who don't know, you have to have a certain period of time before you announce public meetings, and you can't have a seriatim meeting among several members, which a conversation on public media might constitute. And also, you can't invite commentary by saying one thing and having others respond to that. So there's a number of ways to violate the Brown Act. So that's a real concern, and I know that you were talking about that. So that one, I've actually seen that on another board here in town with commentary that was talking about policy, talking about facts and figures, and I personally would think that that's pretty scary. That could be a violation. It might help to simply designate one person who can be the person, one staff person, to put on any notices just as an ancillary, almost like advertising, without opinion, without argument, without any embellishments, and simply say we're going to have the meeting, or or the agenda is now available, or there's a discussion over here on our website, and just use it as a point rather than commenting on it.
It does talk about that in the sample policy, so that's a good point about the open and serial meetings and what can happen. In essence. Right, exactly. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm not sure if this still exists, but I thought that on Nextdoor, agencies could have their own account. And that's how I think East Bay Mud or Siege, they make their announcements. There's no discussion. It's just an announcement. And I thought that we could do that as well, but I don't think it's ever been implemented. And that's, I think, for the protection, so that you don't engage in commentary.
I believe Chief Hart attempted that, and then he didn't, he closed it down at some point.
So it could be looked at again as a means to communicate with the community in a one-way manner.
It's also a staffing issue. We have, Tony is quite overwhelmed already.
Oh,
We have
right.
a public information officer, so that's one reason why you'll see board members posting informational things.
Right.
And I've taken on the outreach role, so I'm happy to do that until we, I don't know, designate someone else.
And we do understand that people probably at this time reference Nextdoor, but we probably would like to make the move to using Nixle as our community communication. and having those folks who want to be notified sign up for that service. We have been cautioned concerning hyperlinks. We've been cautioned by our attorney about being very careful not to open the door because to anyone really outside of government agencies, because of the fact that unfortunately you can let good folks have access and then folks, you can't keep out everyone due to First Amendment issues. So we have to be cautious about that, and we also have to say to all community groups, web services are inexpensive, and we want you to promote your own organization in the way that you see fit. And we cannot provide that service for you because we can also not use government funds to promote one agency over another or community group over another. But we can see about what other policies exist. And I would recommend that we have Director Hasai and Director Deppie work with Ann Danforth to establish a cohesive social media and website policy and remove MySpace from Exhibit A. And maybe if you don't use Facebook, well, then you're clearly a cool kid, because I guess Reddit is the place to go, and Instagram. And yeah, so we might as well preserve ourselves in amber and put whatever is what is current so that folks can laugh at us in a few years. So are there any further comments? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
There were two items. One was something about Serpentine Rock, and I don't know if I missed that in a meeting. Well, what are we doing with Serpentine Rock? And secondly, we have a nice amount of revenue from asset forfeiture, $143,000 and came, and doesn't look like it's going to be in the future. Do we get somebody's sports car? So they just struck me as anomalies, and I just can't let it go out of my head. So if you can quickly answer, I'd be real happy.
Okay, let us finish the current agenda item, and then we'll hopefully address those in closing, or you can speak to the general manager after the close of the meeting. So that is my recommendation. Are there further comments on the social media policy?
I agree with that.
Okay, then I'll make a motion that we request that Director Hasai and Director Deppie work with Council and Danforth to come up with a complete policy.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 4-0. All right, asset forfeiture was Westnet, and it was last year, and it's done and divided and will be no more. So, and those funds must be spent on police expenditures. So that is that $143,000. I'm not looking at it, but, and Serpentine Rock is an area in the park, and we are exploring options to make sure that it's not a health hazard. And we'll be doing that. That's under the direction of the general manager, and he can tell you more. We're going to be doing that in August and September when the when the kids are all out of school and the weather is beneficial for doing that. Although we've had such beautiful weather that, but that's when we'll be looking at that. All right, our last item on the agenda is item 11, and just concerns notification of summer meetings. We're having a tough time putting everyone's schedules together this summer. Fortunately, due to positive things, travel and family. No travel for me, but we'll wish everyone well who gets to do that. So I'd like to suggest that to the board that we have summer meetings rather than the 4 that would normally occur in July and August, that we put those into 2. Unfortunately, we already know that board members have conflict on July 12th and July 19th. So we are looking at a special meeting on Tuesday, July 17th, which is still up in the air. We need to discuss that with, to make sure that we have a full complement of board members, excuse me, and then also have a regular meeting on Thursday, August 9th. The 17th. It does say the 18th, and we found already in the, earlier in the evening that we would not have staff support that
So
evening.
the 17th is still tentative until we can confirm.
Yes.
Shall I take the 18th off the website so people don't?
Please do. That would be very helpful, and I'll notify you as soon as I can if we have a conclusion on the 17th. But if there are no other board or staff conflicts with those, with the Tuesday, the 17th, and Thursday, August 9th, we'll just go on the assumption that those will be our meeting dates. All right, that is the conclusion of,
Make a,
pardon? All right.
that's why it's on the agenda. We'll,
So I'll make a motion that we meet on Tuesday, July 17th.
I'll second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye. All right, the motion passes 4-0. And I will make a motion that our regular August meetings will actually consist of one meeting, Thursday, August 9th.
I'll second that motion.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion passes 4-0.
So the 17th, is that a special meeting? or-
It is a special meeting because
Okay.
it does not occur on a regularly.
Got it.
Then a point of clarification, what you actually, I believe, want to do is cancel the regular meeting.
Yes.
And calendar a special meeting.
All right, we will cancel the regular meetings for Thursday, July 12th, and Thursday, July 26th. I'll make that motion that we cancel the regularly scheduled meetings for July.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that motion passes 4-0. Should I? It's okay that one came before the other? We're good? Unamended motion. All right. I would now like to make a motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes 4-0, and the meeting concludes at 9:24 PM.
Okay.